Yeah, my name is Klaus Heumann. I'm one of the founders of Biomax, and I run the company as CEO for now almost 25 years. Yeah, we are a computational biology company. That means we make software for the life science industry, so we help them on their digital transformation journey. We're roughly 55 people with offices here in Munich, Vienna, and in the US. The company has roughly 55 employees. It's a blend out of computer scientists, engineers, chemists, computer linguists, biologists, physicists, and so forth. We are in the life science industry, so anything that has to do with biological entities, starting from very small bugs to all the way to humans. And we basically, represent the living world on the digital arena. When you deal with biological data, this is often very confidential, very proprietary data, and you deal with a lot of data. And you have to have large compute resources at your fingertips. And all these points are very well addressed within the AWS environment. An important challenge to solve is, for example, if we deploy one of our solutions to our customers, it typically takes months to set up the ICT infrastructure. With AWS, it's just a matter of minutes. Well, we work with AWS, not just AWS, but with their ecosystem. So we work, for example, with All Cloud, and they helped us in a POC to set up our core technology, BioXM. And we're now in the transition to take our key products, Elani for semantic search and Nicara to decipher brain function, to put that on the AWS infrastructure. We use technologies like, for example, Control Tower to manage multiple accounts that we can serve up all over the world. Well, we are still at the beginning of our journey. So far, we can see that things are working, and we can demonstrate to customers this capability. And for our customers, it's a huge advantage in terms of time to actually exercise our products in their private environment. Well, a key comparable is, time to deployment. So it shrinks this time delay from months, sometimes 3 to 6 months, to a matter of minutes. That's, for example, important in clinical trials when you actually have a lot of data coming at a short period of time, and you want to start immediately with these data points and don't want ICT to be in your way to actually be able to get your actual work starting. Well, for our end customers is that they can take advantage of our solutions faster. That means, for example, in clinical trials, they can work with fewer subjects, higher accuracy, and reduce the time for the overall clinical trial and that interpretation. The same holds for our product Elani. Sometimes it takes 6 months to set up an infrastructure to organize terabytes of data, and we can now do that in a very short period of time and without hassle for our customer. So it's actually a reduction of complexity. So our key challenge is simplicity. We deal with complex environments, complex solutions, and our challenge is to make it as simple as possible for the end users. And AWS and the ecosystem of AWS is instrumental to achieve that objective. Yeah, for us it was actually a relatively easy journey because we had a strong partner with All Cloud that actually, carried us through all the steps to get started on AWS, which is actually a new environment. So there is a learning curve, but it makes a difference how you go about that learning curve. And I think that would be also my recommendation to anyone else engaging in AWS. We choose AWS because it has a broad market penetration, so many of our customers already use AWS, and we're confronted with the challenge that we have to meet security standards that are local, so like SOC 2 in the United States and other certifications that are required for the ICT infrastructure. And as a small organization, we cannot serve that up on a global scale. We can deliver our software, but we have to meet these ICT requirements, and AWS is helping us on that. We are a small company. We are highly focused on our core competency, being it, giving plasticity to the data lakes in the life sciences. And we are very busy addressing that challenge, and AWS helps us to actually focus on our core competencies and takes off the burden of dealing with all the technical details, which we're very well aware of, which we control, but which we don't want to necessarily have to deal on a day-to-day basis. Well, working with AWS in the first place, of course, requires resources, and you have to train your staff. Our expectation is on the long run that it will pay off, so that we can serve up with the same staff a much, much larger customer base in terms of high quality ICT support. Our industry is data-driven, so it's a combination of an explosion of data and new capabilities, for example, that AI technologies bring to this industry. And the key challenge is to master this in combination. So how do I get actually plasticity on this, terabytes of data that reside in data lakes? And how do you make that accessible in a simple and easy to use way? That is a key challenge. So the world is becoming more complex as we better understand it. But on the other side, we need rapid answers that are factual, that are dependable. And that requires sophisticated software solutions such as what we provide, which is in our mission. And on the other side, this requires also the respective ICT requirements. Just to give you an example, sometimes we have on a short period of time, just in a few weeks, we need enormous compute resources, but then the project is in a different phase and we do not need this type of compute resources. So this flexibility is something that's beneficial for our business model, but also for the customer. So he's only paying for what he's actually using. So this idea is actually something that we can very well align with on AWS. Well, my advice would be actually to leverage the ecosystem that comes with AWS and to work with partners that have experience on onboarding enterprises on AWS. We also are, for example, member of the MAP program. So these programs and the service providers that can support you to really make AWS fit to your enterprise needs is something that's that should relate into or translate into a strategy, and I think that would be my recommendation. It's not a one-off. You should have let's say a mid-term plan. Where do you want to be in terms of using AWS to drive and grow your business, especially if you're a small enterprise. AWS is solving the deployment problem or deployment challenge that we're dealing with, and with that under control, we are on a path to massively grow the business, not only within Europe but also in other territories like in Asia and the US. There are two challenges that we're confronted with. One is time to delivery. So how long does it take to set up the ICT infrastructure that solutions that we provide require? So this is significantly reduced by AWS in terms of infrastructure as a service, control towers and all the things that come with an AWS environment. And the second is the ability to scale up resources on short notice, relatively cost efficiency, without being tied to a large IT investment that you only need at a certain short period of time. I think the combination of flexibility in terms of scaling and the ability to act fast and to operate globally, I think those would be the three things that generate value to our business through AWS. My role in the company is to drive the strategic development. So we're classically a solution provider in transition to a productized company in two main areas. So semantic search and integration, and delivering the brain. So serving up clinical trials in neurodegenerative diseases. So to help our customers to get better drugs at a lower cost and at higher reliability to the market. That's our mission. And this transition is actually something that I manage, and to that regard, AWS is an important component to enable us as a small company to take that next step. In our world, it's important that we establish a situation where everyone can focus on his or her core competency, and that we establish an environment where we can interact effectively. And AWS is providing a critical component to that, especially with their partner networks like in this case, we're working with all cloud. I think that's something that's on the agenda for the next decade. And I think that's something that we are addressing. And for us, it's critical that we can focus on our core competencies, being, a key provider to decipher, how living systems function and work. And that's something that will be important for the, next decade and beyond. We live in an environment, and this environment is constantly changing, and we are actually changing it. So to that regard, it's important to, as good as possible, understand ourselves, the environment, our interaction. And we see that in our everyday life. And the pandemic was, the last experience that we've made. I mean, if we hadn't had these advancements on molecular biology, these new technologies, we wouldn't be in the position to manage this pandemic as we do today. And the availability of knowledge is critical to understand how to properly react, for example, against the pandemic, And it's important that you can rely on that knowledge. And that's why, ontologies, the technologies we use, are instrumental. It's about providing rapid, fast results in a simple way. So simplicity is the key challenge. But nevertheless, have factual results that you can depend on. Because decisions have to be made quickly, and they have impact. So they have to rely on facts, and facts are spread all over the world, and we bring that together in a dependable way using technology.